Here's a little hint. It's not the market. It's not mortgage interest rates. The problem is you. You're the problem. The realtor, the listing agent. Why? Because of your unwillingness to tell sellers the truth. That's right. It's because you're lying to sellers, telling them, oh, I can get the property sold for that price, knowing that you can't, knowing damn well that you are misleading the sellers up front. That's the real reason why your listings are not selling. It's not because of lack of property marketing. It is in property conditions. How do I know this? And why am I so certain? Well, go do me a quick favor. You could do it right now. Check me on this. Go into your MLS and find out how many properties are actually being sold today. How many closings happened today, this past week, this past month, this year? You're going to find thousands. And so it's not like nothing is selling. What's really going on here is the fact that agents either A, are knowing that they're taking listings that they can't sell, or they're doing it unknowingly. We will unpack both of those in this video. But my belief is that most agents have this unwillingness to tell sellers the truth. Why? Because they're addicted to hopium. Somehow, some way, they've made this decision in their mind to say, well, I've got two choices to make. I can take a listing that I know for certain is overpriced because it's what the sellers want, but I'd rather have that listing. Or my other option is I don't take the listing and I have, well, no listing. And my choice is to take an overpriced listing that perhaps I can market and get other leads from. We'll talk about why that is a huge myth and a huge lie that realtors have been telling sellers for years and decades in a minute. Or the other option is I don't take the listing and I'm unable to leverage that listing to get more business. These are my two options. And so most agents, truth be told, end up telling sellers what they think they want to hear in order to win the listing. We call it buying the listing. There's multiple ways to purchase a listing. You can go into a listing appointment and tell them that you can get a price for the home that you know is unrealistic, but because it's the highest price and your competitors are telling them a price that is lower, it sounds better to the seller, thus the seller lists it with you. That's one way to buy the listing. Or the other way is to go in to a listing appointment, meet with the seller, and lower your commission so much to be the low man on the totem pole. And the seller says, well, we might as well try it. I mean, if you're going to only charge us $150 to list our house, heck, we try it. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. We can go hire a professional after that. And so some agents do a combination of both. They discount their commission next to nothing, and then they tell them some ridiculous price that they know is never going to sell. And I guess now that I'm thinking about it, there is a third way, which is also a huge lie. And that is they go in there and they make all these promises around a mirage of sexy property marketing. Now, you and I know that all that stuff that agents go in there and tell sellers, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do all this stuff to market your home, and look at how fancy and sexy it is. I mean, can we be honest for a second? Who is that actually for? Is that stuff actually helping the property to sell? No, it's not helping the property to sell. It's helping you, the realtor, get more leads. Can we just be honest? But what's been happening is new agents don't know any better. So I cannot tell you how many newer agents that end up hiring me as their coach, that they themselves are bought into this idea that their listings aren't selling, not because they haven't correctly positioned the home in the market. No, it's not that. Not because they haven't priced it correctly. It's not that. It's, Brandon, I have this property priced to market value. What else can I do from a marketing perspective to get the home sold? Nothing. It's not priced to market value. Otherwise, it would sell. I'll prove it to you in just a second. It's not priced to market value. And there is no property marketing that you can do as an agent that can sell an overpriced listing. Yet new agents don't know any better because this lie has been passed down from generation to generation. So much so that they have the consumer brainwashed into thinking that all this property marketing stuff actually moves the needle, which is why sellers, now here's the craziest part. You, realtors, have trained the consumer to ask the question, what are you going to do to market my home? And because new agents don't know any better and they get asked these questions, which leads them to believe, wow, the sellers and the consumers really care about this. They only care about this because for generations, agents that didn't know how to actually get property sold would hang their hat on some BS. The open house and then this funnel and then this social media thing and that marketing thing and that marketing thing, when it was all designed to help the agent get more buyer leads. But if you got your real estate license in the last 3 years, you don't know any better. It's probably what some Tom, Dick, or Harry taught you on how to go and have a listing appointment. They taught you go in front of the seller and vomit all over the seller on all these things we're going to do to get their home sold, to make it sound good. When in actuality, none of that stuff, come on, let's be honest, none of that stuff actually helps the property to be sold. It's only to brand the agent and to help the agent get leads. The consumer doesn't know any better because we continue to buy into this lie. And then we sit back with the weight of the world with listings that we can't sell and we can't sleep at night because we feel so guilty. And this is a problem right now when the market shifts because agents that have been licensed in the last 3, 4, 5 years have been able to take listings at whatever price the seller wants, stick a sign in the front yard, get multiple offers for that listing, get paid a ton of money for doing very little and looking like an absolute hero. Well, when we talk about the market is shifted and agents looking at, well, see, Brandon, you just said the market shifted. That's why my listings aren't selling. No, the market shifted from the perspective that inventory is growing and the number of buyers have decreased. That's what we mean by the market has shifted. What also has to shift is how you price property, how you position homes in the marketplace. Going to a listing appointment and listing the home at whatever price the seller tells you negates the purpose for you. Your value proposition to the market decreases. If you don't know how to have a let me take a step back. If you don't know how to read the market such that you can actually go and meet with a seller and have a valuable conversation such that the seller says, wow, no one has ever shown this to me before. This makes a lot of sense. I see how you came up with this marketing strategy to get my home. This makes a lot of sense, which I'll show you guys here in just a minute. Then, and because you've never been taught how to have that conversation, I understand. And for those agents, it's why I give my script book away for free. There's a link to that in the description. It will show you exactly how to have conversations with sellers such that A, you win business around the truth and you win listings based on taking listings at a price that would cause the property to actually sell. And it will also teach you how to have conversations in a way with sellers that you don't rub them the wrong way, where the seller says, well, wait a minute, aren't you on my side? Because agents go in there and say, well, I'm going to prove this seller wrong, that I know more about the market than they know. Well, then you defeat the purpose. Then you rub the seller the wrong way, lose the business, lose the seller, lose because you don't know how to handle the conversation. And so agents take these listings hoping that they're going to sell, hoping that maybe they can get a price reduction later, hoping they can generate maybe a buyer lead or two through their listing. And they end up doing the market and themselves a major disservice. See, here's the reality. Until you've done this long enough, you won't know the feeling that I'm about to tell you, but soon you will. And that is that it is more painful to carry a listing that you know will never sell than it is not having a listing at all. And until you've had many or multiple listings that haven't sold, maybe you don't understand that yet. And so you're like, oh, what's the big deal? You know, I can just take a listing here or there and I can market that thing and it makes me look good. Well, okay, maybe, but what about serving your client? What about the part that you are a fiduciary? What about the part that these sellers are trusting you to do the right thing? I mean, are you okay admitting malpractice? I don't think so. And so many agents end up not selling their listings and then wanting to place the blame where the blame should be placed on themselves. So let's talk about what to do instead. The first thing that we have to do is change the mindset from what I call a list to list mindset to a list to sell mindset. Let me explain. So getting out of this mindset of desperation or neediness and saying, every time I go meet with a seller, I am going to do and say everything in my power in order to win this listing. Well, that mindset only ends in one thing, and that is you taking listings under false expectations and running into all the problems that we just outlined for the last few minutes. The mindset should be, I am going to go and have a conversation, an equal conversation, one where the playing field between me and the seller are equal in that it's going to be a mutual decision whether or not A, I take the listing, and B, they decide to hire me to list their property. That will be a mutual decision. Why is it mutual? Because of this mindset, in that I'm only going to accept listings. I'm only going to accept clients for one purpose, and that is to sell the property. I have no interest, I have no time, I have no energy to work for clients and to take on properties that aren't going to sell. If you want that, Mr. Seller, believe me when I tell you, there are many other agents in the market, lots of my competitors, who would love to have their sign in your front yard, to use your property, to market your property for their own gain. I'm not it. I'm not that agent. And this is what I've taught agents for a long time that I coach. And this is the truth. The truth is that I would much rather lose a seller, lose a listing based on me communicating the truth than getting a listing or winning a listing based on false expectations or based on BS or buying the listing. I would much prefer to do that. Absolutely much. And I tell the seller. I mean, in fact, this is the very script that I tell sellers. I say, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, a lot of my competitors that you might meet with are going to make things seem better than they are. In fact, they're going to tell you things that they think you want to hear. Why? In hopes that you will give them your listing. Now, if you're okay with it, I would prefer to do the exact opposite. So much so that I would much rather walk away tonight without you hiring me as your agent based on the truth than to try and make things seem better than they are in hopes that you would give me your listing. Are you comfortable with that? And what do you think people say in every situation? You think I've ever had a client? You think you'll ever have a client that says, no, I want you to actually BS me. Of course, you're going to say, well, yeah, that's exactly what I want. And what does this do? Two things. A, allows you to build trust and rapport instantly. And then thirdly, most importantly, it plants a seed of doubt in the prospect's mind that when they start to meet with your potential competitors or interview other agents, and those agents are telling them that, you've got a beautiful home, and oh yeah, we can get this price, no problem. And oh yeah, I charge a lot less than everybody else. What do you think the seller's doing? They're kicking each other under the table saying to themselves, yeah, remember what Brandon told us? He told us these agents would do that. And it makes you look better, and it hurts your competitors. And if you're a competitor of an agent who is telling sellers the truth, it makes you look pretty bad. So that's the first thing you can do. The second thing that you can do, and you should do every single time, is to study the competition. By competition, I mean when you take the responsibility of taking on a listing, it's to analyze all of its competition. This is what any smart business owner would do, any smart marketer would do. They would do a little SWOT analysis. Yes, they would go out there and say, okay, if I'm going to put this property on the market, I have to see what my competitors are doing. And in my case, what I teach all the agents that I coach is to physically go preview those listings. Furthermore, I also recommend that very, very few people take me up on that you actually invite the seller in which you're going to be working for to accompany you on these listing previews so that you and the seller together can actually analyze the competition so that you guys are 100% in lockstep. You guys are in the same mindset. We've gone through the competition. It's one thing to show somebody a CMA on a piece of paper, but they don't know what that house smelled like. They didn't know about the creaky floors. They didn't know about, or vice versa, or the opposite of that. They didn't know, wow, it looked nice in the pictures, but man, oh man, this is even nicer than we thought. This is much, much, much nicer than ours. After walking through it, I can feel what other buyers would feel. That's much different than telling sellers your home is far superior or not as much at a listing appointment by just using your words. See, we want to stop telling people things and start having people experience them for themselves. And so when we look at the analyzing the competition, there's a whole thing that I teach agents on how to score these competitors. But the big idea is to say, okay, how do we stack up? If there are 3 or 4 or 5 other properties that your listing is going to compete head to head with, how does yours stack up? We're looking at, okay, how long has these other properties been on the market? What property characteristics does this property have that ours doesn't, or vice versa? What price are they offering? And taking all of these things into consideration to determine where do we have to be positioned in order to become the obvious choice. What buyer price bracket should we be positioned in such that maybe if we're going to be on the high end, it's the no-brainer, but if we're on the lower end, we're the best deal on the market. Well, we do that by analyzing the competition. And then the third thing that you can do is doing what I call a supply and demand audit. This shows your seller, A, that you know what you're talking about, and B, it helps them to visualize where they need to be positioned if they want to get the property sold. Let me show you an example. All right, so for this video, let's just pretend that your total addressable market is 400,000 to 500,000. So when we look at this, and I'll just give you guys a really, really simple basic idea, is that with inside of a $100,000 price range or TAM, you've got these 4 different brackets. You've got 4 to 425, you got 425 to 450, 450 to 75, and 475 to 500, right? Okay. So when you show a seller, right? We have to get out of this world of like telling sellers stuff and into the world of showing people things so that they have the ability to discover information for themselves, which helps people to make better decisions. Well, when we look at this and we show this to a seller, we say, okay, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, we're going to analyze the supply and demand to determine where best your property should be positioned in the marketplace between this price range, between 400,000 and 500,000. Now, when we look at this, we say, okay, between 400,000 and 425,000, there are currently 4 active listings, which is the supply, and there are no pendings, which means that high supply, low demand not great for you. Yeah. Then we look at 425 to 450, the supply. We have high supply of 3, and we have a pending of 1, which represents low demand. But look at 450 to 475 for a second. When we look at this bracket, something interesting is here. We can see that the supply is very, very low. In the demand, there are 4 homes that are under contract. There used to be 5. Now there's only 1. All 4 went under contract, which tells us that in this area, we can see that this bracket is a really good place to be. We have very, very high active buyer demand and not a lot of homes to compete with. And so, like, as an example, let's just pretend that you're meeting with a seller and they're saying, well, we really think that we should, price the home, at call it $499. Okay, fine. If you price the home at $499, you end up in bracket number 4. Well, let's look at that bracket. It has 2 active that we're going to compete with and very, very low demand. If, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, your goal is to get the highest price for your home, which is true for most sellers, if you were to price the home at, let's just say, $475, 2 things happen. 1, we will double the amount of exposure on your home by doing that. How? Tell me, Brandon, I don't understand. Well, let me explain this to you. If you price the home at $475, you not only show up in price bracket number 3, you also show up in price bracket number 4. In other words, when we look at this, your home becomes the obvious choice in the bracket of 450 to 475. It's by far and away the best home in that bracket, which will get all this demand to come to your home right away, which is what you want, right? Yes. And then in the homes of 475 to 500, you become the best value. So when we look at this, we can say, okay, if you price at 475, you double the amount of exposure on your home. You get to get all this exposure on your property. And this is an example of how we would position your home in the market such that we know with a higher likelihood that your home, A, sells faster, and B, for more money. So here's the thing, right? We just went through a lot of information. I threw a lot of stuff at you. Reasons on why agents don't do certain things and why they should and what to do. If you want to see an agent who's doing this at the highest level, I recently just had one of the agents I'm coaching on the podcast. He explained exactly how he's able to not only take listings in this market, but take them in a way that he's able to double his income and get all of the listings that he's taking to the closing table. You can watch that video right here.